let's get to the second question. We now know why it is that we must buy. Let's talk about how. How do I know where to buy land in Kenya?
Well, that's a really good question, and I'm sure there's many answers to that. How do you know is mostly a question of investigation. Assuming, first of all, you have the desire to own, that's a very critical first step. It's difficult to force someone to own land if they have no desire to. So the interest, the desire is the first key, because depending on what your goal is, you will focus on absorbing information about your specific goal. If I want to farm, for instance, there's certain areas of the country I will not bother looking. If I want to build apartments for rental income at a particular yield, there's certain parts of the country that are immediately disqualified from consideration.
If you want to retire.
Absolutely. If you want to retire,
by coastal.
Yes.
That automatically limits.
Absolutely. Then you're limited to the eastern side of the country at the coast. So how to find out is mostly a question of your own research, asking around. Most of us find out by hearing from people we like and respect about something they bought somewhere, or something that they heard, or an announcement by the government about some giant project, as we witness in Konza. For instance, created a massive influx of investors because of what the government was about to do there. Same thing has happened in Lamu because of the port. Same thing is happening now with the dry inland port in Naivasha. In Kisumu with the plans to do cold chain facilities to support the economic base there. Same thing is happening. So there's various ways to sort of get that on your radar, and that's how you start.
Okay, let's take it from Goshen Acquisitions, Grand Acres perspective, where you look for strategic land investments, if I'm not wrong, with the intention.
We try to be strategic
for greater gains. Basically, I want to buy this now. I want to sell it in 5-10 years at a profit. I want that 10x that I had you talk about.
Yeah.
How do I start looking?
So, if I'm going to approach it from Goshen Acquisitions perspective,
yes,
there are basically three main criteria we like to use. The first is going to be proximity to Nairobi. So we like to be within a 2.5 to 3 hour driving radius of the capital city.
Why is that?
That's because it's easier to manage. If you have to visit the site, if you have to do this, that, or the other, you don't want to be on the road all day to get there, because it makes it a lot more difficult to manage and do what you need to do.
Okay.
Now, if it's a place where we can fly to fairly inexpensively, like Kisumu and the coast, then obviously your radius can get much wider.
Okay.
But in terms of driving, we don't like to be beyond 3 hour radius. So we're limited in terms of where to consider. Someone offered us some land in Embu recently, and Embu takes slightly longer than 3 hours to get to if you're driving sanely. So immediately I didn't even have to think about it. I just said, no, we wouldn't be interested. It doesn't work. And it's not inexpensive to fly to Embu. If you had to fly, you'd have to charter a flight or use a chopper.
There's no airport.
Yes,
yeah.
That's a different economic prospect. So 2.5, 3 hour driving radius. Second thing is we like to be next to impending developments. Konza Techno City, at the coast, Lamu. At some point, we even considered buying land in Isiolo because of what was planned for the tourism city, similar to Konza, but for the tourist sector. So impending developments, whether on a massive public scale like that or a smaller scale on a private basis, those are an important indicator for where we should be considering, because that means the area will experience a sudden spike in interest because of the value that's being invested there, which is very intuitive. The third thing we like to look for is unique geographic features.
Hold on. Yeah, sure. I can tell him to stop. Okay, sir. Okay, no problem. Yeah, he's on. He was on the headphones.
Yeah.
Are you okay though? Okay. The third.
So the third thing we like to look for.
Just take it again. 3, 2, 1.
So the third thing we like to look for is unique geographic propositions, and by that I mean things that existed in nature that are virtually impossible to recreate.
Mountains.
Mountain views.
Lakes.
Although we've seen the Arabs in the UAE do insane things like create new islands and the likes, but we like to look out for those. And the reason is those in essence will generally guarantee a certain amount of desire from the marketplace for the long term, no matter what is happening in the area, right? People generally like to be next to a water body, they like mountain views, they like to be on a cliff with the vistas and unique things of that kind. So those are the three things we like to look for to determine where. Yeah, that could vary from person to person or even company to company. For a company that's interested in developing land, building stay student housing, our criteria goes out the window. Yeah, you have to be in densely populated areas near educational institutions and blah blah blah. If you're looking to do large scale farming, a bunch of our criteria goes out the window as well.
Yep.
So your goal for investing would basically guide the rest of the journey for you.
Okay, so now that I'm sort of hearing what makes Goshen, and what I'm telling from this, it's vast. There's no one script fits all.
Absolutely.
It all comes down from what's your goal.
Yeah.
Hence, therefore, where do I look for? What's next now? From the moment Goshen is able to discover a plot like in Nyanyuki or a plot like by the coast by the mountain, what's the next stage?